This is East Idaho Newsmakers with Nate Eaton.
Thanks for joining us this week. We are talking with Dean Cain and Daryl Williams. You likely have seen these guys before. Mr. Superman here and Mr. Superman. What did you tell me the other day? It's Superman and Black Panther. We could say that. So these guys are in town dressed in uniform because earlier this week they were sworn in, well, at least Dean was, as a St. Anthony Police Reserve Officer. Daryl has been a reserve officer for several years.
Decades, actually. He's been there for decades.
Yes, and he's worked. He's worked.
I mean,
the LAPD, I mean, law enforcement experience. These guys are serious all the time, as you can tell.
Absolutely.
So, first of all, welcome to Idaho.
Thank you. Beautiful, beautiful state. Very happy to be here. Not my first time. I've been here a number of times. In fact, my girlfriend in college had a place here. So I spent some of my younger years running around Idaho. It was fun.
And tell us again why you guys are here. What are you doing dressed in the uniform? What's been happening with the St. Anthony PD?
You want to go first or want me to go first?
Well, you can go second.
Yes, sir.
Well, we're working on a big thing. I contacted Dean. As you know, Eric Estrada's on our team as well. Dean and I have been working together on the Hollywood Parade in LA. And I came across him and I said, hey, you'd be great if you can come in as a reserve and help us with bullying and child predators and all this other things that's going on in Idaho. I said, actually around the world. And he says, I would love to do it. His schedule is a little busy. He gave me a call and he says, hey, let's do this. And so that's how that started.
And here you are.
Yes, and I'm honored to be here. I'm a single father. You know, my son's 18 years old, and I've seen the things that my son's gone through just in his, and he's in a very, a nice area in Malibu, California, and I'm very aware of all the pressures and the things that go on with these young kids, and it's to be involved in something like this with the online predators and the anti-suicide situation. I mean, it's an honor to do something for real.
It seems like, 10, 15 years ago, there were different pressures for me growing up, for most people growing up, but now you do have the online bullying, social media. We've seen a lot about suicide lately from people that you may know in Hollywood,
Sure.
Some famous people and teenagers just down the street. I mean, what is the solution to these issues? I guess that's what you're trying to figure out.
That's what we're trying to figure out, but we're trying to address it, head on. The suicide situation, social media has created a whole different world. If something happens in Rwanda today, we know about it 5 minutes later. So anything that happens, it makes it feel like it's a more violent time. When actually, in reality, as a history guy, it's not the most violent time we've ever lived in. It's just that this absolute just deluge of information over the internet is a huge deal. So you have people who are predators online creating situations. You have bullies online. I mean, a lot of these young kids are having problems because they're being bullied online. And that is something I certainly didn't have to deal with, because we're the same age. Well, I'm a little bit older, but by 2 months. But there was no internet. I remember the bullying would happen, social bullying, things like that, and it really affects young people. The stuff happens online to these kids today is unreal, and they're not prepared to deal with it. We're trying to help them find a way to deal with that.
How many times have you asked St. Anthony? Because we get asked it when we put up that you were coming. People are like, St. Anthony, Idaho. Why St. Anthony, Daryl?
Well, why not St. Anthony?
Exactly.
Right. We work with a global of police officers and police departments, and you could put that word out there, and they won't go for it. They would just go like, yeah, we don't have time for it. In California, we did a system where I did for ICAC, and one of the departments that even wanted in their department, they just said like, yeah, we don't want to be bothered with it. But I said, you have child predators coming to kids' houses or bringing, or having a relationship with kids, and the guy said, yeah, we're not really interested. They finally got the program as they got pressured. And so we looked at things as I worked for another police, a sheriff in Virginia, and who taught me just about pretty much everything I needed to know. We got to conquer this because we're getting 10,000 pictures in a week and 10,000 videos in a week of kids being predarized by parents and by predators. It's insane. So we're working to try to hopefully work that system. And then we're working on the suicide and we're working on the school shooting systems. So Dean and I are in talks right now with some people that we'd like to definitely sit down to meet.
And again, St. Anthony, it's a small area, small place, but you know what? If that's where you start, that's where you start. And then it spreads and it spreads and it spreads. We're going to be talking about this nationwide and different areas, and hopefully the word gets out and the program spreads.
Yeah. And thanks to Chief Harris, who we made a phone call to, and the greatest guy. I said that because he's close by.
He's right there.
He's right up there.
But he's a great guy, and you know, I'm really tough, and I'm like, let's do this, and he's opened his doors and saying, let's do this.
And you guys have actually done a lot for the department already. You got a canine dog, which can be pretty pricey, and some other equipment and training exercises,
Drones,
things like that.
and we have drones, we have new firearms, we have a new training room, we have TVs, thanks to our friend Ruben Garcia, who donated $10,000 to make that happen. We have a lot of new things that are coming in. Hopefully we have a lot more stuff that's ahead.
So Dean, everybody knows you. Well, most everybody knows you. Some of these younger people might. As Superman from the '90s. I remember watching it on, every week. Lois and Clark: The Adventures of Superman.
You got to stay up late for the school night for you, and you had to.
Yes.
That's how old you are. That's terrible.
Yeah, right. My parents love the show. Is that everywhere you go? Is that kind of your signature role? Would you say?
Well, it's funny. Flame. I would say it certainly is my signature role, but Flame is a funny thing. Even when I was shooting Lois and Clark, I got recognized as Superman everywhere, and then a couple years later, I did a show called Ripley's Believe It or Not, and I was going to Atlanta to go work down there, and I was working for TBS, which was based in Atlanta. And I was at the luggage carousel getting my luggage as I was coming in. Some kid goes, "Hey, you're the guy from Ripley's Believe It or Not." I was like, "Wow, that's how fast it switches," and it does. Now, certainly Superman is the role that gained me the most notoriety. But so often now I get people, at the hotel here, "You're the guy you were on those Hallmark movies." And then I get people saying, "You're the guy from the Today Show," or "You're the guy from Fox and Friends," or whatever it happens to be. People know you from different things, and it's a great thing. I like that. Pretty soon they're going to go, "Hey, you're that officer from St. Anthony's." And I'll say, "Yeah."
Well,
absolutely.
yeah. Just buy a house here and start cruising around.
I'll tell you
get to
what,
know
we were
ya.
talking about it driving in. I was looking at some. I mean, it's gorgeous out here.
Yeah.
I love the outdoors. I love the space. It's so. I mean, the air is so crisp and clean. It's gorgeous. It's not wintertime, but I'm a skier. I like ski. I like the snow too. So
Then this is perfect.
It's a great place. So I may very well do that.
What is it like being in Hollywood? You're a conservative. Would you say?
Well, I'm an independent, but
Independent.
It depends on what we're talking about. But some issues I'm very conservative. Some issues I'm very liberal. It's just that I will voice my opinions, and people will assume that I'm X, Y, or Z. But yeah, I'm certainly labeled a conservative in Hollywood.
And you're not afraid to voice your
Not at all,
opinions.
no.
What is it like for you? I mean, have you seen any sort of backlash against your career or acting roles? Or
Hollywood's not the kind of place that would show you backlash to your face. If someone says "trust me" in Hollywood, you know that that's a bad word, because the joke goes differently than that. But I won't get into the joke. But it's just that people they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't do it to your face. That's just not. They're not that sort of straightforward people. I'm an athlete by design. In the very beginning, I started as an athlete. I played in the NFL. So football player forever. You earn everything you get every day. You earn it. You earn it on the field. Your reputation may be good or bad or whatever, but you earn it every single day on the field. I'm used to that. So you have to be at the top of your game. In Hollywood, it doesn't work that way. You can go do something like Robert De Niro did, which I thought was despicable, on the stage at the Tonys and say "F the president" and get a standing ovation. I find that horrendous. Now, in the last administration, I didn't agree with President Obama's policies, but I would never, ever disrespect the office or the man that way. And I think it's beneath.
But it seems like had you said that at an awards show, "F you, Obama," would you have ever gotten another role again? I mean,
Oh, well, see, fortunately, I'm in a place in my career where I could create my own things if I wanted to, and then that's a great thing. But maybe not, probably not. I'm sure I've lost some roles that I'm not aware of for voicing my political views, but I don't care. That's the fortunate thing. I'm in a position where I don't care, and it doesn't matter to me. And again, no one has ever said that to me face to face, just because they're I would say it's a more cowardly way of looking at it. But I respect people's views and their right to have their views, but let's discuss it like rational human beings. Mm-hmm. That's the thing. I'm not afraid to have the dialogue, and I'm not going to call them names if I disagree with them over something politically. I mean, even the fact that I've had this police uniform on, a lot of people find that offensive. And I'm like, how is that possible? Travel the world, get outside of this wonderful country where you have so many benefits, and see what it's like where bullies make the rules, where every law enforcement situation is completely corrupt. Then you come out here and find these amazing officers and these amazing people trying to do a great job, and it's shocking. Mm-hmm. It's shocking. So to those people, I say travel a little bit. See what it's like when you get pulled over by 3 Bulgarian police officers, and you're in big trouble because it's an odd number. I didn't know. I found out the hard way, but that's one of those weird things. Now, that was many years ago. The Bulgarian police force is probably fine by now.
In case you're watching in Bulgaria. So don't go to Bulgaria soon. So,
I've done 5 movies there. I'll be back there again.
So Daryl, in coordinating the events of this week, we chatted, and one of the things that impressed me is you said Dean's down for pretty much whatever you want to do. This interview, we did a surprise that you may have seen on Feel Good Friday with a local grandmother whose son was sick. You're doing a meet and greet. I mean, you seem like a cool dude. You've worked with a lot of people in Hollywood. Are most people like Dean? And what's your take of Hollywood, of celebrities?
Well, Dean, he's a good guy to work with. I just don't like working with him. Being in Hollywood all day.
Yeah.
And being one of he's the most caring guy. I worked with Al Pacino for years. I worked with Marie Osmond. I worked with a lot of celebrities, and they're great people. They're really good people. But you got to see them beyond that. And when you see someone who has a heart for this, that's beyond that. This is what I saw in Dean Cain. And let me tell you, when Dean and I do the Hollywood Parade and we see people, we see tons of celebrities. And this is who I went to. Because this is why I believe that will actually work for us and work for the kids.
How do you keep grounded? How do you keep grounded that you can come to St. Anthony for a day and talk about kids getting bullied and be cool enough to surprise a grandma with a Superman toy,
I'm lucky to be able to come to St. Anthony's and do that, to be honest. A lot of my friends are big-time military guys, Navy SEALs and Green Berets and those guys. They're the most humble, hard-working people I know. They wouldn't tell you how great they are in a battlefield situation or in war or this or that. They would be the most humble people in the world. I'm an athlete. It's a humbling job. I'm a father. I'm a single father. I raised my son alone since he was 9 and half before then. I make every meal for him. I had to change his diaper. I had to do every little job. I grew up with a really strong family and a really strong father who was I'm adopted. So my father adopted me. He's a farm boy from South Dakota. He come from the old school, so I took some old school weapons.
You got spanked, I'm sure.
I got the belt a couple times. He claims he never hit me with it. He would just crack it, but I think I might have gotten hit with it once or twice.
Yeah.
But it was a different time and a different way. But my father is the greatest influence in my life, and he's kept me extremely humble. So much of a great influence in my life that I named my son after my father, who raised me. And I realized how my path would have been different had I not had such a strong father figure. And it's a wonderful thing. And I'm a completely different guy than he is, but his guidance helped keep me on that path. And so as a parent, I realize how important that is. And our kids, I see, I've been to orphanages in Kenya and in Nicaragua and in Vietnam, all over the world. And I've seen these kids that I say to myself, I was in Kenya, this one kid sort of adopted me, William. He just wouldn't let me go. I was like, this kid was so bright and so smart. And in the slums of Kibera in Kenya, and I said, I could take this kid, raise him, and he could be a senator in no time. It's just this is the lot in life that he was given. He's going to be a success because the kid was extremely intelligent, but what opportunity does he have? When you see that stuff, it's hard not to be humble,
Your son, isn't he going off to college?
He is taking a gap year. He's
Okay.
going to travel with me, which fortunately I get to travel a lot.
So he's out of high school.
He just graduated high school. He just turned 18. We have a home in Spain. That's the country his mother is from. So we go to Europe every summer. I've had him in 8 different countries this year.
Wow.
I was able to pull him out of school. He went to private school. We worked it out.
Okay.
But he met 5, 6 world leaders. He sat down with Benjamin Netanyahu, King Abdullah, Mateusz Morawiecki of Poland. The president of Armenia, who was Serge Sargsyan. Well, he was the president and then the prime minister, and then he stepped aside. That was very complicated.
Speaking of Armenia, you did a documentary with Montel Williams, didn't you?
Yes.
About that.
About the Armenian genocide.
And tell us a little bit about it for those people that haven't heard. I think it came out last year?
It came out last year, which is called Architects of Denial. And I was a history major. I went to Princeton University, so I've never been able to use my history degree to this extent. And it's the story of the Armenian genocide, which took place from 1915 to about 1923. The fall of the Ottoman Empire. 1.5 million Armenians, 750,000 Assyrians, 900,000 Greeks were killed. And a lot of land was taken from Armenia. And it's been sort of wiped clear in the history books. And we tell the story, and we've lobbied the U.S. government. I've lobbied the Israeli government, and I've lobbied the UK to recognize it, because none of those countries recognize the Armenian genocide for political reasons. But for the families, you talk to any Armenian, and they will tell you the story of what happened to their ancestors during this time, this death marches to Aleppo, Syria. I've interviewed Syrian Armenian refugees back in Armenia who had to leave because Aleppo was getting bombed, and it was, where their great grandparents had been, our grandparents had been 100 years earlier. It was just kind of amazing. So that film was a great success, and we've been shooting another documentary, Montel and I and David McKenzie, who you know very well, another one on the rise of anti-Semitism and the prevalence of like people denying the Holocaust. Again, it's a big human rights issue, and so it's wonderful for me at this point in my career to be able to do things that matter, to be able to make documentaries that matter, to be able to be here in this police officer uniform with these gentlemen trying to make a difference for real, as opposed to standing on the stage at the Tonys and going,
right.
Sorry, I can't resist.
That might make headlines. Hopefully, this can make some headlines too.
Well, this is positive
Yeah.
headlines, and the positive headlines don't seem to make as much of a ripple.
There seems to be some revivals of television shows from the 90s.
Seems to be.
Lately, I mean, we had Roseanne, and that ended the way it did. And
I don't think that's over.
It might not. Do we see a Superman?
Well, Lois and Clark ended in 1997. We had our fourth season ended, and we were picked up for a fifth season. So we were supposed to do a fifth season, and then Terry went and got pregnant, of all things, and she couldn't film. I would have loved to have done that last season and answered a lot of questions.
So they didn't do it?
We didn't do it because she was pregnant, so that's why we ended the series.
I didn't know
That's
that.
what happened. There it is, see? That's why we ended the series. So 25 years later, it'd be pretty interesting for me, as a fan of the genre and a fan of the character, to see what happened to them. I wrote episodes of the show, and I'm a writer as well. So I've had some ideas percolating about what to do with it. X-Files come back with their thing. I mean, a lot of different shows have come back and done that. Fuller House. I think it's really interesting to catch up with these characters 25 years later. Now, as a superhero, it's a little bit interesting. Where's Lois Lane? Where's Clark Kent at this point in time? And I have some real clear ideas on that. And I think they should have some kids who have some sort of pseudo superpowers, and then spin that off into another show, and then and then I'll just be laughing all the way to the bank.
That'd be awesome.
How big is the bank?
The bank's hopefully going to be really big. We want to be really
Daryl,
big.
can you make that happen? That reboot, the relaunch?
We'll try to get back into the uniform and see if we can open up that
It's
chest.
a different uniform.
CGI for that, right? I mean,
There's also the gym. I'll get in the gym for that.
yeah.
That's where you put 24 hours on your chest.
Exactly.
All right. Well, somebody watching will probably start a petition.
Good.
An online petition. And
Do it.
You might be back on TV next fall.
That'd be great. Well,
Can we
it'll be a
get
little soon.
another interview if that happens?
Done?
Sweet.
Absolutely, easily.
Okay. Your Twitter feed, I believe your top photo pinned is you and your son saying a prayer.
Yep.
In Israel?
Jordan.
You're a person of faith, I'm assuming,
I
from
am.
seeing that. What is that like, being in Hollywood? A person of faith, someone who believes in God. And...
Well, it's not the kind of thing that you need to wear on your sleeve, especially in Hollywood. And in fact, one of the most successful films that I was ever in was a film called God's Not Dead, which was a faith-based film. We didn't call it a faith-based film, and it didn't. The film wasn't preachy. I think a lot of audiences turn off when you get preachy toward them in watching a faith-based film. And this film was much more subtle, and my character was actually an absolute heel in the thing. So my son went to a Christian high school, and they all watched it, and people were like, "Dude, your dad's kind of a jerk," which was fun because they knew me as a nice guy. But then to watch this character, but the film did really well. People want, I do a lot of Hallmark films, and those are family friendly, if you will. It's not the kind of thing at the same time I'll do a terrible, action movie, play a terrible killer, bad guy, things like this. You can do all of these different things. But to make films like that, I think are fantastic. And I'm not shy about it, but I don't beat people over the head with my faith or what I believe. I'm all over. One of my closest friends is one of the top Islamic scholars in the world. We'll discuss religion all the time. That place where you see that picture in my Twitter feed is the spot where John the Baptist baptized Jesus Christ on the River Jordan, Bethany beyond the Jordan, and they've recently uncovered that spot. It's amazing, and being all through Israel and Jerusalem and seeing all these places firsthand, it's amazing. And seeing all that history, standing in the city of David, where they're unearthing it now. They brought us down inside there and let us see where they're doing the archaeological digs. I'm walking around, I'm walking the paths, that kings and pharaohs and emperors or whoever were walked on for all that time, and prophets and things. You just go, wow, this is incredible. It makes it really tangible. As a history guy, I also find it fascinating. But the faith aspect in Hollywood, there's a lot of people with a lot of strong faiths. Whether it be Christianity, whether it's Islam, whether it's Judaism, Buddhism, it doesn't matter. Someone's faith is to be respected, and if they can incorporate that into their work, so be it. That's great.
Do you have a particular role that is your favorite to play? You mentioned you've played the bad guys, the good guys, the fathers. Any role that you like?
I played a cop in a movie called Ace of Hearts. It was really a canine officer. No, of course I think playing Clark Kent and Superman was the greatest role that I've played. I enjoyed it, playing a bad guy opposite Denzel Washington, and at a time that was fantastic. I enjoyed playing a gay cad in a film, The Broken Hearts Club. I mean, the roles are varied, and those are three of my favorite roles right there that I've ever played. But when you play when you're on a series and you're doing 4 years of 18 hours a day every day, you have to love that character. I mean, that has to be something that's important to you. So definitely I'd go with Clark Kent as my favorite. Yeah. Superman, a close second.
Daryl, what's next for the foundation with the St. Anthony PD?
Well, I'm working on becoming chief.
There were groans from that side.
Chief. Yeah.
Everybody's on this other side.
You said I could be a half chief.
Yeah, I'll be a half chief. Half breed. Be like Cher.
Yeah.
We're working on a lot of stuff right now. We're working on. We want to work with other departments in Idaho, anywhere in the United States. We want to, we're looking at another dog. We're looking at expanding the department with other reserves. We just lost one of our reserves yesterday. So Felix Rappaport, who was the Fox Connecticut CEO, who was a really good friend of ours. So it's just kind of a different day for us for today and yesterday. But we're moving forward. We want to make sure that there's no more school shootings. We want to work on the bullying. We want to work on everything, because right now, as Dean was saying, how Robert De Niro went out there and said a bad word, these kids get off on that power and they go, you know what, this is cool. I can go out and do what I want to do, and they go out and hurt other kids. We can't have that. If the celebrities are doing it, they got to stop it. Because if there's no positive reinforcement, we're going to get negative reinforcement. Once we get negative reinforcement, we're going to lose more people. They're changing the whole system. It's not about firearms. We just talked about this. They're going into certain things. They're going into more explosives. They're going into other stuff that we don't want to see anymore. But we have politicians that says it's firearms, firearms, firearms. But if we look at the real situation, if the parents are letting their kids bully and the parents are doing bullying, what are we getting? We're getting the negative. And so these kids are going to go out and do what they want to do because the parents are saying, it's okay if you call this kid a blah, 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 or a blah, blah, blah. We're fine with it. But when it comes to reality, and this next kid's coming into a school and shooting 20 people, the reality is, what did we do? Because you let that happen, and we can't let that happen. So we got to work with even the celebrities, the doctors, the police officers. There's a great police chief was in Dallas, and when he had the shooting, everyone thought it was me. They called me and said, "Hey, does that look like?" I was like, "Well, I am trying to work for chief." But it was really serious because he said that, listen, we're your grandmother, grandfather, your teacher, your mother, your parents, your doctor. We're not. We're police officers to try to protect. And every time we take a step, we get 5 steps back. Because nobody wants to help. Everyone goes, they're bad cops, F this, blah, blah, blah. It's not about us. It's about you and changing the community. You have a kid, you need to formulate that kid to be an adult, not to be a bully, and not to hurt other people. You gotta be loving. I have a great kid. My kid's 27. I love my kid to death. Let me tell you, he's never been that way. He's lazy. He's a mama's boy. But he's very proactive, and every one of our team is so proactive. My friend Ruben, the greatest guy, I'm telling you. He had a loss in his family. Let me tell you, it still hurts when I see him going through it. But he's a strong guy. I mean, a strong guy, and I love this guy to death. And I call him Mighty Mouse. And there's Black Panther, and there's Superman.
We got a whole superhero
team. We have a whole superhero team, right?
That's great.
Eric, we call.
You can call him Punch. You can go just stay with it.
You call him Punch. Yeah, you know.
Well, you need him here with all of you.
Oh,
We can work that out.
Yeah.
Well, no,
There's not enough camera for that.
There's not enough head. You know, we're gonna have a headroom in here. His head will be this big, right? Dean and I have been like, yeah. So anyway,
But you know, the important thing that he was saying right there that I find extremely important is the parenting, the family unit. It's so important to have that support. I know where I would have been without my father. And so I know that's what made me 10 times a better father. And mental health is a big part of it. And if you see problems with your kids, you have to speak out. If there's kids seem violent or things like that, you need to say something. Mental health is a big part of it. But you know, even something like with what we're doing, so on the national stage, you can say, you know, F the president or do this, whatever. But if we go and talk to 2 kids today, 1 kid, and you make a difference in that 1 kid, there's your change that moves it forward. And so it starts on that individual level. So we'll talk to a bunch of kids today, but if we move 1 kid,
It's worth
we've
it.
done our job.
Speaking of kids, there's probably a kid or 2 watching that has been bullied, that feels lonely, that doesn't have any friends, that has maybe thought about suicide. What's your message for that 1 kid watching?
Hang on. That is my message. Hang on, because it gets better. It absolutely gets better. Kids have such a limited scope of vision that they can understand this. Their world seems so small, whether in a small town in Idaho or an inner city of Chicago. There's a big, giant world out there, and get out there and experience more. This little bubble that you're in is not everything there is by any stretch of the imagination. So hang on, live another day, move beyond that, ask for help. If you're having that kind of trouble, ask for help, but just hang in there. And then when you're old enough and you can get out of that situation, get out and experience the world, and you'll realize, oh my gosh, that's a much bigger world, a much better place. You hear those stories all the time. You know, everybody's been bullied to some degree. Everybody gets bullied. I got bullied to some degree. You know, I was a good athlete, so it was harder to bully me. I had an older brother who would protect me a little bit, and sometimes he wouldn't protect me. But that's, you know, everybody gets bullied. Everybody gets picked on. It's no different. So hang in there. You'll get through it. It will pass.
From the lips of Superman himself, Clark Kent. Dean Cain, thanks so much for stopping by.
Pleasure.
Daryl Williams,
Thank
thanks
you.
for stopping
Yes,
by.
sir.
We have more information. We're going to link to the projects they've been working on in St. Anthony. You can click on that information down below, and we hope to see you guys again.
Deal. Done.
Thanks for watching. Have a good week.